What's up, everybody? Welcome to an episode of How to Human. So, my first dozen or so of these interviews are going to be with people that I've interviewed in the past. And I kind of say that in the intro, and I've said it in the trailer that I released already. And no specific order. There's only one person in particular I do want to be the number one guest. We're actually recording next week. So, I don't know exactly when this will drop, but these start airing in April. And I'm super excited to just revisit some of my favorite guests that I've recorded in the past because there were particular reasons why I reached out to these people in the range of 10 years ago. I think, Jess, in particular, you were like 7 or so years ago. And it was when you were working with the Mind Pump guys, if you remember.
Yeah.
And do you remember? Yeah, that was a long time ago, right? You were like in the Facebook forum. You were, I think at the time, also an Invicta ring girl. You were in the Mind Pump programs, or at least in the photo shoots. I remember you were getting mentioned on the podcast all the time on the Mind Pump podcast. And I just reached out to you, and this was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and we had a cool conversation. And I have a hard drive somewhere in my office. We just moved into a new place. That's why there's nothing but a white wall behind me. This office isn't set up yet. But I have a hard drive with all of my original interviews from, all the last 10 years. And I want to go back and listen to them as I'm recording with guests again, just to see where things were and where they are now. I don't know if I'll probably never, ever air those again, but just for my sake, and even if the guest wants to hear them, I'll Dropbox them to you or something if you're interested in it. Because I just think it's a cool way to like look at the evolution of one's, life, right? Or somebody's path. So with that said, introduce yourself, Jess Mao. What are you doing these days? How may people know you?
Gosh, it feels like such a long time ago, but that is how I came to know you. I still train. I still am very fond of the Mind Pump guys. I'm not actively filming fitness stuff with them right now. The last fitness, I guess, instructional video I did, I don't know if you know who Mike Salemi is.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, we did something in February 2020, right before the world went crazy. And then I don't know if I'm going to go back to Invicta. We've talked about it, Shannon and I, a few times.
Really?
But I think COVID has changed a lot. And I don't know if you know, Elias passed away.
Yeah.
And so, like, we know we're not going to replace him. He's completely irreplaceable. But because we haven't had a ring car team in a couple of years, I don't think it's priority. But yeah, so I've just been like overly immersed in my daytime job. I switched. When was it? Every day feels the same. I switched in July of last year. So I had previously been at Stanford University, and now I'm at Google. So it's been interesting. A lot of changes in that area of my life.
Dude, that's crazy. That's kind of how I wanted to kick off the show too, and kind of have like this lead-in question, because we kind of have like, even though it's a small like rapport, but like we do know each other. We've had a long conversation, a long interview style conversation. So if I were to say in the last 10 years, like how have the last 10 years treated you, or how do you think you've treated your last 10 years?
I feel like everything's just been a whirlwind. I don't know if this is. I was like sitting getting dressed for the gym yesterday thinking, what does it feel like to not be a hot mess of a human being? But I think that's just the human experience.
You sound like my wife.
I'm like, I think some people are really great at putting themselves together. And I don't know if that's just external or if that's truly how their lives are. But I think the older I get, the more I feel like you embrace the messiness of life. And that's just kind of how it's been. There have been really amazing moments in the last 10 years, and there have been really low moments too. So that's just, everything's on fast forward. A lot of days feel the same, especially working from home.
Yeah.
You kind of lose track. I can't believe we're already in April.
I know. It's like, I don't know if you celebrate Easter, but we have these Easter family plans this weekend, and it's like, what? I could have sworn it was New Year's yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and your Instagram's fun to follow, like at Jess Mao on Instagram. And it's because you do, like, a lot of the times when you post something, there's only so many people that, like, I personally will read a long caption from. you know, and you're one of those people because I feel like it's hard. I do know you, and it's obviously there's a bias if I know the person. If it's just like a regular influencer, somebody I don't really know, you got to really grab me. Like the hook's got to be so good to read it. But yours, like it feels like it always comes from the heart. You're always trying to put into words like what you've either gone through or been going through, and help people maybe relate to what you've got going on. So I can tell just even in that short reply what those last 10 years or so have kind of felt like for you. So if it's if it means anything to you, your captions work. Like they're great captions. I know you might put a lot of time into them.
Um, it's funny because I had a girlfriend ask how I find time for it, and I don't like to follow the formula. I really like it to be for me and a creative outlet because my daytime job is not creative at all. And so my page is really just about being vulnerable and expressive. And I'm really grateful that people follow me, but because I don't follow the formula, I'm surprised that I have gathered. I'm not like super famous or anything. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging about myself, but I am a bit shocked at times that I've gained a following that I have
Yeah.
had.
No, it's cool. There is this, especially now, like if we just look back of the like early Mind Pump days, right? When the guys didn't have a YouTube channel at all. A lot of us were finding out about the Mind Pump podcast for the first time and finding out how great of just content and value that it was for the people, whether you were a competitor. I think at the time you hadn't competed, but maybe you were thinking about competing in like bikini or bodybuilding or something like that. And it's just like there was almost no big players in the game. And now there were big players, and then there's the smaller players, like this show included, that's kind of a new show, but not a newbie doing it, right? Like I know the ropes. I've been doing a lot of podcast production behind the scenes for the last couple of years, and to look at the amount or to know the amount of like content output that has to go out there, like Jess texted me when she was like, hey, is this audio? Because back in the day, I used to only do audio because I'm like a purist. I used to think podcasts have to be consumed via audio. It's like on-demand talk radio. What's with all this video? And then the clips have to have like 100 transitions in it with like all your text going through the screen. I'm like, God, that's just not. I'm a purist that way. Like I get it, but you do have to adapt to the times. And here we are doing this. But yeah, like I can appreciate somebody like yourself that wants to just put the stuff out there because it feels genuine. It feels like it's for you. And then you're just like, I'm going to put it out there and someone's going to resonate with it. And then inevitably people do. I think you're probably at like 8, 9 or 10,000 followers, I think, on Instagram. And those are just people that bond with what you say and they can, feel what you're feeling.
Yeah, it's so nice. I've had, and I don't want this to sound like I'm exclusive at all, but I've been really flattered by men who have reached out and said they've been struggling mentally and that some of the posts have gotten them through the day, because I just don't feel like there's enough support for like men being vulnerable or emotional, and so that's been really meaningful.
No, I can totally relate to that. Like I'm all for like to me, there's not enough. Like you can't over communicate. Some people use that term like, oh, you're an over communicator. You always want to like draw things out too much, or you're looking too much into it. But if we're just getting down to it, like nothing solves most problems like a good conversation or being very straight to the point or being very matter of fact sometimes, because why are we tiptoeing around things, right?
Yeah.
And so a big theme of the show also, it is, I put it under the business category because I've always been an entrepreneur. And even if you're not a direct entrepreneur, if you're an intrapreneur, you're working for a big company, there's a lot of things that you do in those companies where it feels like it's for you. There's so much, room for growth that you're like, I'm bringing a part of me into this big company and, helping it excel or whatever. So you don't have to be an entrepreneur. And then also the self-development side of it. And I remember also in our first conversation years ago, it was very like mental driven. There was a lot about fitness and nutrition and body. I don't want to say dysmorphia, but some sort of do you remember?
Oh,
It
I'll
was
wait. Yeah,
yeah.
body
So
dysmorphia doesn't go away.
okay, all right. So I don't know how much of that you want to share, or how much of that has still played a part in your life. But for a lot of us that are like yesterday, I put on my first gi in like 6 years.
Oh my God, congrats.
I know.
I
Thank
just
you.
went back last week too. How'd you
It
feel after?
Oh, I mean, I felt amazing, but man, I lift almost every day. And
Yeah.
after one 1 hour class, I was like, bro, I am dying. And my wife's a blue belt. She got a blue belt last year, so she's gotten the bug, for a while now, and she's had it, and she earned her blue belt, which congratulations to her. And I just stopped training, and I would always make the jokes like, I'm gonna smash you when I get back on the mats. Like, I know you got your blue belt, and I'm still a white belt personally, but I know I'm like Mighty Mouse. I can play the video game, and then like I know what I'm gonna do. But it was fun. Her and I got to train and drill, and then roll, and then the live rolling was great. But man, it was killer. So did you say you just got back into it too?
Yeah, I just started going to no gi. So I'm usually in a gi, and I was like, well, I should know no gi because that's a little more applicable for self-defense, right? And I think within the first 10 minutes, I'm sitting there. And when I started jujitsu, there were no girls. It was just like it was me and a bunch of dudes. And so, like I had more ego than I probably should have. Like, I'm strong. And this time I went with a girl who's so well matched for me size wise. And within the first 10 minutes, we were doing like a hip escape movement. So she was in my guard, and I was like, I'm sweating so much. Like no one else is sweating this much. And I'm breathing really hard, and I'm strong. I do hip thrusts all the time, but like it just does, that strength does not translate at all.
Yeah. Even the warm-ups, the rolling, like the front, somersault kind of flip, and then the back and all the lunges and the running. It's like we can do it, but man, does it take a toll on you, right? You're like, dude, these people probably think I never work out. Like I can't do any of these things. And it's just, I don't know. You got to get over that, back to the mental part of it. Like you got to get over that and just get into the gym. Go train. If you've never done jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or anything, go do it. Get into a regular conventional gym and start lifting weights. And to circle back around, I know you were dealing with a lot of that early on, or back when I first met you. So how have that, let me go back again. So it's business, but the personal development of it is a lot of the, I like as a marketing kind of guy when it comes to the entrepreneurial stuff. The three big niches, if people are familiar with it, is health, wealth, and relationships, right? So those three big buckets are things that you just can't escape. There's always something that you're trying to strive for when it comes to health, wealth, and relationships. And if you tie all those together, like one of the biggest commonalities is your health. Like however healthy you are, the better that your wealth and your relationships kind of all come together. So how have you grown in the last decade when it comes to that?
I don't know. I feel like I don't have I wasn't keeping track of the data to give a measurable output for that. But
Yeah.
So this is all feelings based, but I feel like I've come to a place to accept, I do think that everything is holistic. I don't think you can just excel in one area. I think it's all tied together, and that's how you show up at work. If you're not healthy in your relationships with your physical well-being, you're not going to be a good person to work with. And so I do think that it's like is it 360?
360?
Yeah, like a 360. Everything you are as a human being, that's how you show up in your everyday life. And that's how you show up at work, whether you're an employee or an entrepreneur. So for me, I think fitness has unfortunately taken a back seat as I've tried to find my place at Google. It's, you hear like rumors about how intense the tech industry is, and they move a million miles an hour. And so just trying to keep up, and like I recently found out I'm ADHD. And so my brain just doesn't work like most people's brains. And the way my therapist had explained it to me was like, a lot of people will say you can copy and paste a skill set, but for someone with ADHD, they've come up with all these different neural pathways to mimic things like executive function. Your brain is rewiring all of those things when you change your environment, you change jobs, you change whatever it is. And so you will feel more exhausted, whatever, right? And so I'm just trying to get back into being consistent in the gym. And I've realized how much of my confidence is tied to whether or not I feel like I look good. And that might not be the healthiest mindset. Like it's more about how you feel, but I'm just going to be very honest. Like if I don't feel like I look good, I don't want to be seen. Like I don't want to go out. I'm not as extroverted or confident at work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can totally get that. I mean, a lot of some of the people that I've worked with and still work with, and I'm actually the same way. Come to think of it, like if you don't feel like you look half-ass decent, you don't want to be on camera, right? Even if whether it's content or even like a Zoom call for work, like I don't want to be on Teams. I don't want to hop on a Zoom. Like, just send me an email, send me an audio, like give me the notes recap, and then we'll move on. And it's all mental. And that's why, like, my original logo for the podcast I used to do, the Pursuit podcast, was a brain. And the one that you'll see on this one, it's like a Neanderthal with a brain inside, and then all the things that we have going on as humans. And to hear somebody say, like, recently diagnosed ADHD, or somebody who's said that they've had it for a long time, like, that plays a big role in like how you just do your day-to-day stuff, right? So whether it's a big part of it or a small part of it, I don't know. But what have you done to kind of mitigate some of the effects that it might have on your corporate and personal life?
I mean, I've actually found it really enlightening. I know some people go through a grieving process and they find out they're neurodivergent. And for me, it was like, oh, cool. I'm so excited to figure out how to make my life better now that I know what it is that I don't think it's a burden. I think it's a gift. So what it is that I'm gifted with.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's funny because it's the smallest things. Like, okay, I realize I'm not a morning person. Like, a lot of ADHD people are creatives and their brains are very awake at night. So, and I think I'm at a company that really supports differences. And so, like, you get to set your own hours, whereas like most corporate jobs are like, you have to be in at a certain time and you have to function the way everyone else functions. And they're like, oh, if you like function better at 10 a.m., like you can start your day at 10. And so that's been really cool to see that companies can function differently.
Have you tried to become a morning person? Did you, like, you're like, I'm not gonna let this define me, and try to do it, and then it just not work out?
Yeah. I mean, when I was at Stanford, I started my days at 5 a.m. And it's kind of crazy to think about now, but like, there are times where you function really well in the morning just because it's so quiet and no one else is around. But if you think about creative expression, like I was getting stuff done, but I wasn't thinking out of the box. Like, that for me happens late in the evening or like early in the morning. So it's really interesting. And then people, like, like everybody else, you supplement with like nootropics.
Yeah,
in hopes that you're functional.
for
And you
sure.
can get through the day, but you're not functioning at your greatest ability.
No, you're right, and I'm guilty of just cramming caffeine, Alpha Brain, Neuro One, whatever I can from time to time. And I know I should take a break from a lot of this stuff, and I do. But when you feel even if it's the slightest like benefit or effect that it has, you're like, oh, I'm gonna keep doing this. And like most humans, we're just like, give me more, right? Like I got to keep that edge. But I've never like delved into the New Vigil or Pro Vigil or those actual kind of like big stimulants that people get a lot of, I guess, productivity out of. But you got to do what you got to do. And I personally was also like, I'm a super night owl for the longest time. And as I got a little older, got married, kids, the whole thing. Now I like, as I go to sleep, I can't wait to get up at 5 o'clock, make my coffee, and then just get to it.
Well, I think it's different when you have kids too, to find time for yourself. Like,
Yeah.
You almost have to do it while they're still asleep, right?
Dude, I wish I could agree, but they're up at 5 as well. It doesn't matter what time they go to bed, man. They are up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. So maybe get half an hour. They're cool. Like they're 8 now. So they'll eat, they'll kind of just hang out or whatever. But there's just something about getting up early in general that like it to me now, like, if you don't mind saying, like, how old are you now?
30. I'll be 37 this year.
Damn. Okay. I'll be 34. We were talking. Oh, we were so young. We were in our 20s. We were in our mid and early 20s when we first engaged.
It is. I like every time I have to say my age, it's startling. I'm like, am I? When did that happen?
Dude, I used to say, and I still kind of say that because the lockdowns took away like 2 years of my life. Like I'm still 30. You know what I mean? Like I refuse to believe that I'm going to be 34 this year. I'm like, nah, I'm going to be 31. Whatever. I don't care what my license says.
Exactly. And like people say you're only however old you decide to be.
Right.
Yeah. It's still like, I don't want to say it out loud.
Yeah, there's something about it. Like, I used to not feel that way, but now as I'm getting older, and it's only because I feel like I was robbed of some time. I'm like, no, 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 I want that time back. Like, let's
Yeah.
extend the calendars or the clock. I don't know. Something's got to happen. I got to feel a little better about this. But let me ask you this, because you do work in a high level career focused environment. Do you have any entrepreneurial like goals or endeavors that you've either started or want to start?
I do, but I just found out that my company can actually take ownership if I
Oh,
start
really?
it while I'm employed. And so um, it's a lesson learned. And so you're like, well, I'll just table that for
Yeah.
later.
The audience I'm going to be bringing into the show from other shows that I help co-host or have helped produce, which will be, it's a good that it'll be a large audience already coming into this brand new show, but they're going to be like, why did you ask her more about her work? So we've talked about it before the show. Like, I don't want to grill Jess on like what she does or who she works for, because if you just mention Google or any big tech company, people already go, they have their tinfoil hats on. And I understand. So this isn't the kind of show we're running here, right? This is a self-development business show. If you want that, you can go to other shows that I help, manage or whatever, and just listen to there. But that's one of those things where people hear it, you're like, why? And then people immediately, I can already see it. They get that Joe Rogan clip where they're like, Google used to have that they're like an X and X such a company, and then they changed their mission statement, or whatever. So I don't know, but as long as you're happy where you are, right? And if you feel like you're fulfilled, like, just keep doing what you're doing, if that's your jam, right? And then later, maybe you're there 5, 10, 15, however many years you're there. But when you're done and you've tabled all of these ideas, you'll have a lot of information, right? You'll have a lot of knowledge on how to like just take whatever you tabled to the moon.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of people are very hesitant to say like whatever tech company that they're working for. And I didn't get it until I was in it, but people have very strong feelings about what tech has done to the world, and I totally understand it. We're just trying to survive like everyone else, and I feel like in order to keep up with the rental market in the Bay Area, like you have to work in tech.
Yeah. I can't believe you're still in the Bay Area. Let me just say that.
Oh, hopefully not for much longer.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you
The hope.
expand on that?
Yeah, when you go somewhere and you feel at home for the first time,
Yes.
I had that feeling the very first time I went to Australia. So my
Mm.
husband's Australian. We were long distance for 3.5 years. And it was the first place I ever felt like I wasn't stuck in fight or flight, and I could really embrace who I wanted to be and who I felt I was as a person.
Mm.
Um, and so we were there in December, and we visited this town called Byron Bay. A lot of people know it now because Chris Hemsworth lives there.
Oh, okay. I was trying to think like, where do I know that name?
Yeah. It was a place that my husband had gone to throughout his childhood. And so we had gone like 8 or 9 years ago, and I fell in love with it. And I'm kind of bummed that Chris Hemsworth moved there because I'm like,
Now there's a tension on it.
yeah. And now it's gentrified, right?
Right.
And I totally get it because it's just one of the most beautiful places on earth. But this tiny beach town, and I worked remote while I was there. But it was great to like start my day off with movement, go for a walk on the beach, meet great people who are really friendly, and whose values were just like more in alignment with what I value in life. Like I do not like the keeping up with the Joneses. It is strictly a survival thing for me. And so I want to feel healthy. I want to feel good. I want to get sun. I want to be out in fresh air. I want people who care about the environment. And I don't want that to have to be active work, right?
Yeah.
But there, it's like all the utensils are made out of wood. And so it just makes me feel better about existing as a human being. And
I mean, I
mostly,
could take you to Mexico. There's a lot of wooden utensils there too. I don't know how happy you'd be there though.
yeah. Um, and just this like beautiful connection to nature, and um, the pace of life is great, and and I think the biggest thing for me was feeling safe. Like I haven't really felt safe in the Bay Area for a while. And
Yeah, I mean, California in general. And I was just reading before we hopped on. I was kind of catching up. I like to consume a lot of news. I'm going to take it you probably don't consume a lot of news, or do you?
No, I feel like it sends me in a very negative spiral, and I don't
Yeah.
want to be ignorant either, but there's like a balance, right? Like my
Yeah,
father,
there should be a balance.
yeah, my father starts his day by watching the news, and I'm like,
Let's go, my man.
very negative. I'm like, it's very intense.
Does he try to fill you in on everything?
No,
Oh, okay, that's cool.
yeah, it is cool. And so I think for me, I like to consume news through people in conversation, because just I don't know, it feels better for my nervous system to be
Mhm.
like, oh, like I trust you and you're a safe space for me. So if you relay something, maybe it's not as intense as hearing it from somebody that I don't know.
Yeah, or Rachel Maddow screaming at you on TV, or somebody, or whoever it is on whatever side of the aisle. Hey, two things about Australia. So when you said you went recently in December,
Mhm.
so do you know how they handled it as far as like the lockdowns and that particular area?
It was very, very strict. And this isn't new. Like, I think for a lot of people, it was startling at how they managed COVID.
Hmm.
But Australia, because it's an island, they've always had very strict customs, like very strict quarantines. And so um, there was a lot of news stories that made their way here that because we had people who were living there had very different like lived experiences. And so like Melbourne was super strict, and our friends did agree with that. You know, it was kind of like you could only go within a 6 mile radius of your home to buy groceries, and they had curfews and things like that.
It's wild.
Yeah. But they did, you know, but it was only while they were trying to manage the numbers down. I think because they live on an island, they thought they could really like live in a world that was not affected by COVID. And they did for a really long time. Like when they first, because we were there 2 days before like shit hit the fan. We were
No way.
there March 14th,
Yep.
2020.
Dude, I remember March 14th like it was yesterday of 2020.
Yeah. So we were there. Our flight got canceled, and we kind of joked like, oh, like COVID. Um, you know, we're gonna get stuck in
Oh
Australia. And then
no.
like I love my mother, but she is somebody who lives by fear. And so she didn't want us to go. She thought it was a bad idea. And we're like, it's like COVID's not gonna be a big thing. It's fine. Like it's
Her
like,
famous last words.
exactly. Like we're like, oh, maybe we like that was very invalidating of my mother's concerns. And maybe we should not have taken that approach. Because we came back and we're like, there are no groceries, there's no toilet paper, there's no like people are really freaking out. And so we kind of learned our lesson, but you know, then we couldn't see my husband's family for 2 years. Like I don't have an Australian visa, so because he's a citizen, he could fly back, and I
Mhm.
could go back as a spouse, but there were no flights, like absolutely nothing. I think after maybe like 3 months after March of 2020, the airlines just shut down.
Mm.
Um, and so we had flights that we had booked previous to that to go see family, and they canceled them without even letting us know. And we spent, I want to say, like 2 months reaching out to the airlines. So, like, visas were really restricted, like who they were granting them to. Um, and like they would bump people off the flight and prioritize business class. And I understand you're running a business, it's a smart business model. Um, but we know a few people, Aussies, who went home and just lived a normal life in Australia while the rest of the world was locked down, and they were like at festivals on the beach. And I think they were able to push the COVID wave off until sometime last year. So they were really proud of their lockdown model. Some people were really angry about it, and then some people were really happy about it. Some people really hated on Americans because they couldn't understand why you wouldn't prioritize your neighbor, and they boasted about something they call mateship, where you protect the most vulnerable in your community before yourself. And they liked the lockdown model, and some people were like, we're over it. We want to do what America's doing. So I think it was equally as divided as it probably was in the States. It was just like a volatile time, right?
Yeah. By equally, do you mean completely divided?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they're as vocal as Americans are. Like they're Commonwealth countries. So like what that means for anyone who's not familiar is they're like very strongly associated with the British. And I feel like British culture, they're not very emotional. They're very like reserved in how they present themselves in public. I've been informed that I'm very Californian, like very in my feelings, and like it's just not the norm over there.
No, I get it. And I'm the quintessential Texan here with my Houston Astros hat. I'm like, I'm Mel Gibson on the horse. Freedom, freedom, motherfucker. Let me alone. Leave me alone. I've got cows, I've got land, I've got beef and guns. Leave me alone. So the beach in Australia, not keeping up with the Joneses, I find that really interesting because of where you live and where you work in. So I can appreciate somebody. I myself, I have this neurotic idea of always like wanting to be like, even though I'm like a quote unquote country boy and I do live in Texas, I just moved from Houston to the South Austin area. So
Nice.
I like it. It's great. Some might be like, it's still Texas. And it's so funny when people are like, yeah, it's, Rogan brought everybody to Austin, right? And now it's like, oh, it's like little California or whatever. And then it's the hill country and it's nice, but also like you're living and these are the comments on Instagram or on social media, like, but then you're living in Texas. Like who wants to live there? And it's so funny how oblivious people are to certain areas of the country like Texas. And just because it's more of a conservative state and whatever, people are like, nobody wants to live there. Meanwhile, it is crazy. Like if you try to go, I'm half an hour from downtown Austin and you try to go to the mothership or anywhere around there. I mean, you can't get in there. Like everybody wants to be here. So nonetheless, not keeping up with the Joneses, living in the Bay Area, working at a tech company. Why do you go the other way with your goals? I guess, like, is it, like you said, it's just about a means of survival essentially, and you do enjoy it, but why be more, which I can appreciate, why be more chill about everything?
My health. I think it all has to do with health. And we had sat with some friends, jujitsu friends in Australia, and they were saying how women's health especially is tied to like being in a fight or flight environment, and how a lot of chronic illnesses are tied to that. And I just don't. I think the older I get, the more value I have for peace and like a peaceful life. I saw this. And this is a reflection of my age. I saw in a TikTok reel on Instagram about this girl who's like, I don't want to be rich so I can have all this shit. I want to be rich because I want to have a slow morning. I want to read a book. I want to have a cup of tea. I want to travel and learn about a different culture. And I think Australians are very chill like that. Like culturally, they're like, yeah, I'm going to take a leap year. Like, I'm just going to travel for 6 months. I already told my employer it's totally fine. Like, it's just very nomadic in culture. And I don't think there's room for that in the area that we live. And like so many people have a Tesla or two. They have a mortgage on a $1.8 million home. And like I told my husband, like, that just doesn't really interest me. Like, I'm really happy to have like a tiny home that we call home base, and we travel. We live in a different country every 5 years. We experience the world. Like, we don't have an interest in having children. So I think we have a little more freedom to live like a less stable life, and like a very minimalistic life. And so I'm like, well, let's capitalize on that. Let's go experience the world and not be tied to a mortgage or a home, and just like do things with each other. And I feel like that's very Australian. If you know any Aussies, they're like, oh yeah, like my passport is filled and we've done all this stuff. And I think, again, that's part to do with they're so isolated from the rest of the world that they're very adventurous. It sounds romantic to me. Maybe
I
it
was gonna
won't.
say you're romanticizing the idea
Yeah.
of all this, which is cool. I mean, I love just hearing people that nerd out about the stuff that they really enjoy, whether it's being like a nomadic lifestyle kind of couple or whatever it is. Because for me, it's the opposite. We have kids, like they're in jujitsu, they're in baseball. We've got things going on every night. You know, my wife works fully remote, which is great. I also work pretty much fully remote, and when I'm not in my home office, I'm at another podcast studio or another office, like doing the stuff I enjoy. Work in
Yeah.
marketing, or work in digital media creation. It's all awesome, but it is very like, all right, this client needs that client needs this, the kids need this, we need to go there. And it's also nothing I ever wanted. When the first time I interviewed you, like if I go back to that time when I was in my early 20s, you were in your mid 20s, I would have said the exact same thing. Like, I don't want to get married, don't want to have kids, I don't want to be attached. I remember the same verbatim. Like, I don't want the mortgage, I don't want to be tied down to this. I want to be able to get up and go whenever I want. And it's not that we can't do that, but there's obviously a lot more planning behind it, right? That you
Yeah.
have to do. But I still can resonate with wanting that, like the slower jam kind of a lifestyle. Like, I don't know what the oceans or what the water and the beachfront and all that look like where you want to go, but I imagine it's beautiful. And I imagine like being close to that just puts you in a certain place that you can't get in very many areas.
Yeah. And like when we were in Byron, there was like seeing dolphins every morning and like sea turtles, and the water is warm. You can just like walk out without a wetsuit. Turquoise, like everything feels very untouched. And I love that. And it might not be realistic at all, but um, I did fall in love with that lifestyle. And so if we can try and attain that, that's great. If we end up having to pivot, that's life.
Yeah, right. If we've learned anything in the last 3 or 4 years, is you got to really be able to roll with the punches.
Yeah, I loved how many people are like, it's 2023. What goals do you have for this year? And I was like, I want to be a good person.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be happy with who I am, and that's it. Because I don't think I can predict anything further.
No, man. Yeah, another big reason for the show is that like I like consuming all of that anxiety driving intense like news info and like being up to date with stuff, and that's my jam. But simultaneously, like the exact other half of me likes to put out as much positive content as possible that's not doesn't revolve around that. And for those that are interested in long form conversations with really cool people, like this is the best medium to do it. Like there's nothing better. There's not a Netflix show. There's not a documentary. There's not a YouTube channel. There's nothing like a good podcast, whether it's a 3-hour Rogan or a 1-hour conversation with Jess Mao. Like if that's your jam, it will put you on a path to just either have a better day, possibly a better month, or maybe a really good 2023. That's just, I firmly believe that this is the medium that has the most power. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree. I know in college I was like so excited to go. I had heard that there are cafes where you like rent people, like you rent books and you learn about someone's life. And I
What?
feel
You
like
say
podcasts,
rent
yeah,
people?
yeah, you rent people. Like you can sit with a monk
Tell
and
me
you,
more. Who can I rent?
I know. And I thought it was interesting, but I think podcasts have made that into like done that at scale.
For
You know?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it kind of made that obsolete. Like it was cool, novel idea for a while. And then they're like, Apple's like, all right, podcast. You can have it all the time on demand.
exactly.
Okay. So what, actually, before I move on, if it's not Australia and not that particular area, where do you romanticize about possibly going? Maybe even in the States?
Oh gosh. I've always loved Southern California. Just I think I'm a beach person, and which is odd because I'm horrible in the water. Like, I will. We did an experience that March of 2020 where we were in the water, and every time we go to Australia, I challenge myself to confront my fears and go in the water because I'm like, well, there's great incentive here, right? Like the water is warm, marine life is awesome. So hopefully it'll distract me enough from my fear to go and like do this thing. And we went swimming with whale sharks. They kind of like mislead you. They put you in this beautiful turquoise water, like we just want to see like your swimming levels so we know who to keep an eye on. You're like, great, I'm a good swimmer. And then they have these little gummy bears and like a gummy whale. They're like, so this is how you're, when we tell you to go, we're going to push you off of the back end of the boat and you'll form around the whale this way. It's going to be great. And then you're like, okay, like I'm ready. I can handle this. They're like, you can grab one of these little floating noodles if you're uncomfortable. And then it happens and they're like, go, go. And it's a stressful situation where you like line up and they kick you off the back of the boat. And I grabbed a noodle and I grabbed a child's noodle on accident because I was like, everything's happening all at once. And I dove in. I see this gorgeous whale shark, which if you've seen them swim, they look really slow, but then it's not the reality of it.
Oh man.
So I'm like trying to keep up. And I look up and I realize everyone has left me. Like everyone is an immaculate swimmer. And I'm like, okay, how do I signal for the boat? Like, what was
Where's
it?
my flare gun? How do I get out of here?
And I was like, I'm gonna die in the water. Like I accept it. There's no castaway vibe here. I'm just gonna give up and sink. It's fine. I was never meant to be in the water. So it's kind of odd that I like the beach so much, but I'm like maybe from a distance, it brings me peace.
Yes. I'm the same way. I just flat out can't swim. Like, let me just say that. Like, I would love to say, I'm not the best swimmer. No, if you throw me in there, I'm going to sink, I'm going to die, and I'm going to just wish that I had never gone. But when it comes to being around the water, like my wife loves to fish, our kids love to fish, my relatives, brother-in-law, everybody loves to fish. One of them has a boat. They like going out on the boat. And I'm like, you know what? I'll wear the vest. I'll even have the floaties on. I'll have it. I don't care how I look. Because if y'all want me to be a part of it, I'll go. But I just hate being in the water. But being around it, it does make you feel a certain kind of way. It's like relaxing. It's chill. It kind of like feels like the earth is like coming into you every time the waves come in. I like it. I don't know if I could live around it, but I do appreciate the water.
Yeah.
And I do remember also, I think you had like, I don't know if you have gotten over this, but you had, I believe, like an autoimmune issue at the time when you were either thinking of competing or had competed. So have you overcome some of those health adversities?
Yeah, I'm a huge biohacker nerd. And so, like, acupuncture, coffee enemas have really helped break down scar tissue for endometriosis. I've managed to put off having the surgery for almost a decade now. And so, I haven't had a painful episode in quite some time. So, I'm an advocate for holistic practices, like, and then I know not everyone is on that side of me. I'm hoping your listeners are, but and then the other is Crohn's disease, and so like I just had a checkup, and they're like, you really don't want to be on steroids. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not. I will eat healthy foods. I do hot cold to try and bring down like overall internal inflammation and just control it that way. And if I have like more adverse reactions later on in life, then I'll manage it then. But so far, so good. Knock on
Yeah,
wood.
no, that's awesome. Yeah, my wife and I also like I mean, you should see our like stacks of supplements, right? Like afternoon, you know what I mean? Like I got the other day literally off Amazon because you get everything next day. It's the containers where you just like an old person, you fill up like Sunday through Saturday, and it's
Yeah.
two-sided. It's supposed to be like AM PM, but it's not even AM PM. It's just like all at once. That's what it
Yeah.
requires. Like the amount of supplements we take just in the morning filled up an AM and a PM Monday and AM PM Tuesday and so on. And I mean, for the most part, like even when we got whatever, I guess it was COVID, I had it, didn't even know I had it. Well, we went to a doctor checkup, just a regular thing, and they did the swab or whatever, and they're like, oh, you have what is it? I already forgot the term. I was so into this when we were like in the depths of it, but I forgot. But is it not T cells, but it's escaping me. But they're like, yeah, you have elevated whatever, meaning that you had it, you fought it, and now you have the damn, I'm forgetting. Do you know what
I
the antibodies? Those certain antibodies, I think that were produced by your body or whatever. And I was like, oh, so I must have had it. And the only thing I could really attribute it to was just like the amount of like all the zinc and magnesium and the vitamin, D and everything else. And aside from like the occasional aspirin or something, like we don't really take anything else. Like we love the hot cold, we love getting the workouts in. Obviously, strength training in general, man,
yeah,
I can't say enough good things about it.
same. I feel like a lot of people say, what do you do? Like, I don't know if this is actually true, but people have said I still look like I'm in my 20s.
You do.
So they've asked, like, oh, what's your secret? And I think it's strength training.
What's your background? Where are your parents from?
Taiwanese.
Okay, my wife's Thai. She's half Thai, right? So
Nice.
it's always like because she also looks very young, and she's gonna be 39 this year. Do what?
It's like you fucking Asian people. You
I
don't
was
age.
gonna say that, but I'm like, "God, I haven't talked to Jess in like a decade. I can't just be like, it's because you're fucking Asian, obviously. But that's a big part of it because most of her friends who are, all of our other white friends, it's a running joke that like they're aging fat, they're aging like milk. And it's just like because you're white, but my wife's Asian side is taking over all of the white side. Like she looks like she's still in her 20s.
I feel like genetics plays a huge role in it.
Hell yeah.
I will disclose, like, because I don't like to fake. Like, I haven't gotten anything done. I've had Botox done. Like, I am a frowner. Like, when I think I frown, when I frown, when I sleep, I frown. It's just my thinking face. And I was like, no issues with aging, but I don't want to look angry. Like,
right. Just an angry Asian lady that's walking down the sidewalk.
Asian lady is like, yeah. So I'm like these are fine. I don't mind, but it's like just please, like these lines right here, just get rid of them.
Dude, that's why I smile. I try to consciously make an effort to not frown. Like I feel like, and if you do smile, like as they say, use less muscles or whatever. But like it does keep your forehead flat. So I don't want to be the person. The only time that I frown at all is like when I'm watching content that I'm really trying to consume what they're saying, and I'll be looking at my phone or my iPad or something. And I'm just like frowning, and my wife's like, "Stop frowning." I was like, "Oh, why am I doing that?" It's like my concentration face. It's like you got to frown for whatever reason.
Yeah, if you want to serious.
Yeah, it's a serious topic, all right? I want to learn about, packing my own food for the apocalypse or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, do you get it regularly or is it just something you did and it's like you kind of set it and forget it?
I think I started it when I was, I don't know, like 35. I got it once a year. And then now that I have like an intense job, I think I've done it 3 times a year.
It's funny that you haven't done anything else because usually the friends that we've had that like it starts with Botox, like just a little bit here, a little bit here and here, and then it's like they got lips and fake tits.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever do the fake boobies. Just it's not good for athletic performance.
Yes, that is very true. Not good for athletic performance.
I freak out about having silicone in your body because you just hear horror stories, right?
Well, yes, I was gonna say. Well, I had a friend who has a friend that and this is a reoccurring story from like, let's just say, half the people that I've known that have gotten implants, their body just rejected it, and they had terrible, terrible side effects.
Yeah, silicone poisoning is so insane, and there's no like fixing that. So, I'm still happy to be like head of itty bitty titty committee.
Yeah, shout out. I prefer them to be real. That's just me. I don't care what any guy that listens to this think. That's just me.
I feel like real me to come back. Like in the 90s, fake boobs were the thing, and now
Pam Anderson, right?
Yeah, and now like I remember walking around New York, and I was like, no one's wearing bras, and they're all real boobies. Like it's great. Yeah.
Yep. Were you a Seinfeld fan by chance?
No, I know there's like it's such a classic and like great humor comes from it. Like my husband has shamed me so much for not.
Oh, he does. He likes Seinfeld?
He loves Seinfeld.
Oh, dude, last night we just finished the series, my wife and I, again, for literally the 11th time. We're like, well, it looks like we got to start it over again. Like at evening when we're like chilling, we're studying or like reading stuff or just have something in the background, it's always Seinfeld.
Okay, we're gonna have to go down that path then.
There's a whole thing because it's based in New York, right? There's this whole episode where one of the characters, like, she doesn't wear a bra, she's just strutting down New York, and Elaine like gifts her a bra thinking she'll wear it under her clothes, but she ends up wearing it over her clothes, like a bustier or whatever. It's hilarious. Seinfeld is life, man. Like that show nailed every aspect of real life.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to give it a go.
And your husband, he's a decorated jiu-jitsu player, right?
He is. He's older now. He's just like wrestling whether or not he should retire. But he just did his third ADCC trials, and it didn't go the way he wanted. But I think that's why he's like he was going to retire. Now he doesn't want to. But prior to that, he was ranked, I think, 10th heavyweight in the world.
Nice.
In IFBJJ.
IBJJF.
It was like
there you go. You were thinking bodybuilding and jiu-jitsu at the same time. It happens all the time.
What is that?
IFBJF? Nope, that's bodybuilding. IFBB Pro, IBJJF. Oh yeah, okay, that's cool. Yeah, you don't post. I mean, I'm the same way. Like, I don't really post a lot about my wife, and she doesn't really post too much on her socials. She works regular corporate America, but I wasn't too sure if y'all, you're still had a husband because I'm like, I never see him, and his name's escaping me. Sorry if you want to fill me in again.
Dennis Roberts.
Dennis, yeah. That's cool. That's awesome. He's like the definition of like a true jujitsu practitioner.
Yeah, he loves it. He lives, breathes. And we were on a trip in Venice, and we went on this like sunset kayaking thing through the canals, and he was sitting across from me at dinner, and he's like, I just knew. I was like, you're just thinking about jujitsu.
There's a past guest that I'm hoping to have on also this month. The Muay Thai guy, Sean Fagan. He goes by the Muay Thai guy. And
Yeah,
do you know who that is?
yeah.
Okay, so I had
I'm
Sean.
a huge fan of Muay Thai. I think
Yeah,
it's beautiful MMA art.
cool. So there's another Muay Thai content creator and also I guess practitioner who does really funny videos, and sometimes Sean will post them, and I just saw one today. I'm gonna send it to you after this, where it's like Muay Thai guys like jiu-jitsu guys, like if that's all you are, that's all you are. And the whole bit is that he walks in and tells his dad, I got something to tell you. He's like, I haven't been going to Muay Thai training, I started going to BJJ. And he's like, what? He's like, are you and so and so are rolling around? He's like, yeah. He's like, are you in his guard or he's in your guard? He's in my guard. Oh no! And it's just like this whole bit. It's so funny. Only like a martial arts enthusiast would get it, but it's so funny.
That's so funny.
So let me ask you this here as we're wrapping up on the hour. I usually don't write questions, but I wanted to get the flow going of just a few of these to hit with every guest. So let me ask you this: what are some of the best personal development breakthroughs that you think you've had in the past decade?
Oh, I think really understanding, like I have a history of being in abusive relationships. And so the last couple of years is like diving into attachment theory, the body keeps a score, like really understanding how to regulate my nervous system and like learning about why, like subconsciously, why I make the decisions that I make.
Can you expand on that? Because I'm fascinated by that stuff.
Yeah. So like not no knock at my parents because I know they love me, but like Asian parents are hard. And so like I've always thought love is earned, and that makes you a prime candidate for like covert narcissistic abuse.
Really?
Yeah, because you're constantly like earning to have someone's approval. You're a people pleaser.
Right.
So like subconsciously you find those personality types. And attachment theory, there's a couple different kinds. Like a quarter of people are anxious attachers, a quarter of people are avoidant attachers. I think 13% or something are like a mix of both, anxious, avoidant. And then the rest of the population is something called secure. And being an anxious attacher, like you fall in love quickly, you overinvest in your relationships. And so like some of the ways you mitigate that is you're supposed to date more than one person at a time. So you're not overly attached and like overly committed, that like you're trying everything in your power to make this one thing work. And for avoidant attachers are like people who are like very shy to jump into relationships. They don't like to confront issues. They don't like serious conversations. And like, of course, the way the world works is those people find each other more often than not.
Yeah.
And it's just like disastrous for both of their trauma styles. And so both types should work to find a secure partner. Apparently there's 50% of the population who are like that. But I'm like, I don't know, human beings, right? Like we all have trauma. I have a
messy. We're messy.
Yeah, we are very messy. And so that's been really interesting to dive deeper into.
So you mentioned, your parents and your relationship, and I always love having these conversations with anybody that's willing to have them, because a lot of people, if you have a really good relationship with your parents and you're like, I really don't have much to say, like they're great, we always like grew up loving each other and it's great, and we still hang out, and I admire those people. And then you have the ones where like, yeah, my parents love me, but like we don't really talk that much, like we don't really do stuff. Like when I see friends who like they go out to lunch with their parents and shit, I'm like, wow, what's that like? And more so like the dad. Like I hang out with my mom all the time. We'll have lunch, but like there's always one parent usually that you're like, what's going on, man? Like why is it we've never really connected the way a father and an ex-parent, whether the mom or the dad is? So just share as much as you're willing to share. But like, as you've gotten older, now that we're in our mid to late 30s, oh God, it hurts.
Don't
It
say it.
hurts. Have you found yourself kind of getting through some of those things that maybe in your, early mid 20s, you were like, man, is this ever going to get any better?
Yeah, I actually don't talk to my birth father anymore.
Mm.
I think he's actually a bit of a narcissist. He's on like wife 5.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so this one, she used to be his secretary. He
Used to
cheated
be
on.
his secretary?
I
Oh,
was like,
man.
could you not be that? He was very well to do for a while, and it was like standard. He cheated on his wife with a secretary. Did you see that movie Parasite?
I didn't.
Okay, you don't have to. It makes you feel dirty inside, but like
No, I want to watch it.
yeah, the general gist of the movie is this working class Korean family finds a very well-to-do family. They find jobs with that family, like they replace their entire staff with their family to make money. They get very greedy. They get consumed by greed, and it ends up messing up this family's like life.
Whoa.
And I feel like that is who he's married to right now. Like we,
I was like, shit, how's he gonna tie this together?
so he, my last stepmom, I adored her. They were married for almost 15 years, and he really did her wrong. It took me a long time to feel comfortable with her because I was so used to him like switching women out, and like it was also very traumatizing. That's what he did to my mother. And this family came in. It was like his driver was her brother. His chef was one of her family members. His entire work staff were like her cousins or somebody. And I was just like, this is that movie.
Oh my God.
And so he actually just went bankrupt, which is just, I swear it's like they lived that movie out. But
Wow.
I had confronted him. I was like, this new wife really wants me to acknowledge her as my mom. And that is a very, very highly respected term in my world. And I refuse. I still feel very broken by the things that you did when I was little. If you'd like to repair that, great. But like that is a relationship that is earned. And I don't feel like you've done the work. And he didn't want to do the work. So I just cut ties. And I know that's not easy for everyone to do. And
yeah,
I have an amazing stepfather who worked very hard to take care of me. And so I lean more on that relationship than I do with my birth father. But, I think I read some study where like the first 3 years of your life formulate 80% of your brain and like your decision making.
jeez.
Yeah.
We are all fucked. We've got baby brains.
I know. I was like, your data on like 50% of the population being a secure attachment is not like, I want to know your sample pool.
Yeah, right. Although when you acknowledge or when you like kind of just inspect the landscape of, let's just say this country, because obviously the world's a big place, but this country is big enough as it is to just try to understand how like what's going on is going on. And then you're like, oh, we have a lot of babies like in politics. We have a lot of babies in like pop culture. We've got a lot of babies in a lot of places. And I don't know how, I can imagine kind of how you grew up just by your parents' background. Like I always say, when you have an immigrant parent, especially if both parents are immigrants, like it's a different like world that you grow up in.
Yeah. Like you are responsible for taking care of your parents. Are you from an immigrant family?
My mom's from Mexico. My dad's from Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think especially if like your parents don't speak English, then like a lot of the things that falls on you as a kid.
Do you remember like reading like documents for your mom and like filling stuff in at the doctor's office and doing all the translations?
Yeah, and I laugh about it now, but like as a child, you're like, why am I doing this?
I know. I'm 9. Like, why am I reading your medical documents to you? But,
yeah.
and you appreciate all those things. And, the moms, both parents play an important role, obviously. But, man, moms usually just have that special place for you, obviously. Like, they're the ones that they spit you out of their bodies after, you tortured them for 9 months. So I've got to, and not to mention, typically mom's just cooler, I don't know, a lot of cool dads out there. But what could you tell somebody? Well, let me ask you this instead. Do you feel like as you've gotten older, you've gotten better at just cutting those people off, whether it's family or friends or people that, you know, it's just, I got to keep my circle small. There's only so much time. There's only so much effort I can put out.
I think it's hard because inherently, when you've been hurt, you don't want to hurt anybody else. Like, I think most people don't want to pass that on, right? Like, you're hesitant to make someone feel rejected or unlovable. But I think it comes to a point where you do have to protect yourself a bit. I wouldn't say it's easier, but I think you accept that it's something that you have to do.
Yeah. I used to ask it. I just, as you and I were talking, I remember I used to ask this question at the end of my previous podcast. So I'm going to just try it again for a little while, see how it sticks. But what is it that you're currently obsessed with?
Being healthy, and like overall mental, physical well-being, and like really striving to figure out what my trauma is, how I fix that. And I don't think it's ever truly healed, but like knowing when bad things happen, like as much as we all would like to prioritize our health all of the time, like it slips as you are immersed in like your day to day. You're putting your kids first. You have to work to sustain your all of your expenses, and you want to be a good husband or a wife, and put all these other things first. And sometimes our health can take a back seat, and it's almost like you don't know until it's too late. And you're like, I feel kind of run down, or I'm being snappy, or I'm not giving enough effort to this. And then you're like, oh, I'm burned out.
Yeah.
So how I'm trying to learn, how do you have better balance in your life, and how do you make better choices on a day-to-day basis so you don't get to that point?
All right, I can appreciate that. The artistic podcaster in me is like, yeah, that's my jam. And then the entrepreneurial, like Gary V 24/7, you know, don't sleep, hustle, hustle, hustle says, well, balance is a really weird thing to try to achieve, because if you think about it, balance is like it's like a standstill. If you're balanced, you're still. And we all know that, like, because of what we do and here in America, like, no matter where you are, it's a constant, like, hustle and bustle of the day-to-day life, that, like, something will always have to take the back seat somewhat. Like, even if it's just a little bit teetering, but you got to be okay with that. You got to be able to roll the punches, like we said earlier. So balance is great, but if you could learn to just, you know, drive when you don't want to drive, or go to the gym when you don't want to go to the gym. Like today, like the weather is terrible. Like we're getting like 5 inches of rain today. You know, it's 47 degrees. I'm like, the gym's only 9 miles away, but I really don't want to go.
Yeah. I think just as you age, you have to learn how to embrace change and discomfort. Like, no one likes those things, but it's inevitable. I don't think balance really exists. I do think everything takes first place in, like, you just alternate.
Yeah.
You're just spinning this wheel, and right now this has my focus and this has my focus. But I do think, like, that book Atomic Habits, it's like, well, what things can you do subconsciously to set yourself up for success?
I have not read that book, believe it or not, but I hear it all the time.
I haven't finished reading. This is like an ADHD thing. Is when something is exciting, you'll start it.
Yeah.
And then, I'll finish it later.
Oh, why do we do that? I don't have ADHD or ADD, but man, is that a common theme, especially with books, man. I listen to shit all day long, but if I got to pick up a physical book and I just can't do it.
Yeah, it's like I kind of read that thing on my shelf.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I got multiple monitors going here, Jess. I'm a professional.
Right.
But let me see if I can pull up. There's this software or this program that I just signed up for not too long ago, and I believe, let me see if I type it in. Yes, it's called Shortform. And is it Shortform? Yes.
It's like the new wave. Everything is consumed in short form.
Are you familiar with Shortform by chance?
Kind of. Like we
So
talk a lot about short form videos and stuff like that.
Actually, no, opposite. It's books. So what it does is it basically condenses all of the greatest, all the books you could have ever thought of into, like, basically like a really short form, like PDF, where you can get it's kind of like Spark Notes was back in the day, you know, when we were in school.
Yes.
Remember Spark Notes? Okay. So it's like that, but we're not cheating on our test. We're like trying to get the most out of these books. And it's really, really cool. So I don't have a referral code or anything, but I might get one because I signed up for it. I started using it, and it's really, really cool.
I hope you do.
Yeah,
That would
yeah.
be a great thing to share out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe you can leave us with that. Is there any because you earlier you said you were, a biohacker of sorts. You like to try to tap into maybe some shortcuts or maybe some things that just improve. So when it comes to maybe something mentally and something physically, do you have one like little hack that you learned that really helps you get through your day or get to sleep or something that's important to you?
I feel like it's vague, but just like understanding it's okay to be human. Like
God
when
damn
you
it. I
wake
like that answer so much, but I was hoping you'd give me like a really cool new supplement I hadn't heard of.
I think just like grace is so important. Like you're gonna make mistakes. I think the trick is like just don't stay down. You just got to get back up. You have to forgive yourself. You can't hold on to the mistakes because you're just going to end up in this negative spiral, like of making another mistake and being very hard on yourself. It's okay. I made a mistake. Moving forward.
Right. Move it, keep it moving.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So where can people follow you? Do you have anything you got coming up in the media world, or are you staying behind the scenes of social?
I I'm chatting to some of the guys at UFC Fight Pass about news opportunities, but I'm so bad at social media. And the only one I do is Instagram. Like I have a Twitter, I've never really used it. Um, so Jess Mao on Instagram, and I don't know. I don't know what's in store next.
You know what's funny? And we're wrapping up, but another previous guest that I'm hoping to have back this month is Mitch Clark. He was a UFC lightweight, and he
Oh,
just started doing Fight Pass commentary on an event that I was unfamiliar with, and the name is escaping me. But it's like Unified, I think, was the competition. It's on Fight Pass exclusively. I don't know if it's MMA. I think it's MMA. It might be Jiu-Jitsu, but yeah, I think that's great. Like I like that the UFC can give some of these, retired fighters and fighters that just kind of, went elsewhere maybe an opportunity to do analyst stuff or any kind of behind the scenes stuff.
yeah, I'm really excited for fighters to have more opportunities to like continue their careers. Fight Pass is great. Like they've had such great expansion over the years. I mean, it's UFC, um, but we'll see what all these guys do because not everyone can open a gym.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody wants to. Like as soon as you get that purple belt, you're like, I can start teaching classes now.
and it is
Hey,
not an easy business at all. It's
no, no. As we've learned from the Mind Pump guys for 10 years now, the gym business is not an easy business.
yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being back on the podcast after all these years.
Thank you for having me. We got to stay in touch better.
Yeah, that's another reason why I reached out to a lot of these people is because it's like, everybody has the excuse that life takes over, but communication is important. Like I said at the top of the show, and keeping in touch with a lot of these cool people, and even if you weren't like, if these people weren't known, it's just like you have a good conversation, you have a good bond. Some of these people we actually met in person, we've had dinners and drinks, and then all of a sudden you're like, you look at your text message conversation, and I'm like, bro, it's been 4 years. How has it been so long since we communicated? He's like, I have no idea, man. I'm like, yeah, I got 2 kids now. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. I
So
think
yeah,
it's the downfall of social media because you feel like you're keeping up with someone's life
totally.
and then you're like, oh, I'm kind of a bad friend.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for giving me this much time of your day. I will shoot you an email or a text whenever the episode's up later this month. And yeah, let's keep in touch.
That's good. Thank you so much. I'm excited for you.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.